Hi, welcome to Angel's Nook. If you like our videos, please like, comment, and especially subscribe so you know when the next one comes out. And if you're commenting, please let us know what you like, what you're interested in, what's helping you, and what you might like to see in the future. Thanks for stopping by. This was probably made in the 90s or the early 2000s. I tried sanding the bottom and found out, MDF. I was hoping because by opening up the back of this clockwork, you could see there was wood on the inside of this, but it is not a good quality wood. So this is going to have some sanding done on it because the finish is pretty rough. I'm going to embrace part of that with this, but I like for the areas up here to be smoother with what I want to do with this and how I want to change it. The clockworks come out including this face, so that's going to make it a lot easier to do. So the first thing I'm going to have to do with this is do some sanding and then degloss it, and then we'll start working on how to do this. And if any of these videos are helping you guys, please click subscribe and like for us because it sure helps us out. Thanks, and we'll start on this soon. I'm not going to be as careful sanding as I might be because this wood can't be gotten back down to, and all of this base a lot of it is MDF, so it's kind of pointless. I'm using regular 220 grit sandpaper. Sanding blocks have their uses, but it takes a lot longer with a sanding block. This goes a lot faster and I have a lot more control over how far I'm going into it. This I am going continuously the way I'm going to apply paint. It's hard to see here, but some of the old finish had crackled. I don't want that when finish done. The paint finish on this will not be perfectly smooth. I doubt this particular piece, you could really get it completely smooth without just going through the wood. This wood is so thin that it's the band around this. And you're down here on MDF that tends to get fluffy or furry when you start sanding into it down into the main part. So this now has most of all the roughness. It's got all the crackliness of their finish off. So it is ready to paint once I wipe it down with deglosser wipes. And you can see all the gunk on here. That's not worth wasting your deglosser wipes on. You just need to give it a really good wipe down with either just wet with water or Windex. Either one works really well. I'm going to get all this gunk off my hands and take this in the house to work on it and start painting it, deglossing it, and painting it. I've already completely deglossed this off camera and it's perfectly ready to paint. But one of the things I thought you should probably know, this is the wipes. You can either use the wipes by HTP to degloss, and they're rough. If you hear that sound, there's a roughness to them. They're not just a regular wipe like a wet wipe that you would use. Pardon me. But one of the things that happens sometimes when you're deglossing on old pieces or finish that wasn't great is you think you're getting dirt off, and what you're getting is old stain off. If you can see on here, this keeps bleeding onto this. It's not dirt. It is the old stain. I could keep doing this and then I might as well just strip this piece because at this point that's what's coming off. This was a cheap stain, and so it comes off. And sometimes you find that in old finishes of cabinets. Sometimes the honey oak cabinets were done with a really cheap stain. They were definitely done with cheap polyurethane, which is why you've got that awful looking finish at this point that you're trying to hide. So on pieces like this, I know this is done. It's ready to go, and I definitely don't want to lay this down on my glass top. Deglosser will etch any glass permanently. So I'm going to hand this off to Jim to get rid of, but I wanted you to see that. On this piece too, because it's a small piece, I'm going to, and some of the grooves in this on the face and all would be hard to get into with a roller. It's possible, and I've done it, but a fast, quick way is going to be for me to apply this with a smaller brush and then use the sponge just to stipple. I don't need the amount of paint that the sponge would pick up off the jar to do this piece. So that's what I'm going to do, is apply with a brush, stipple with the sponge. This is a color called Manor House. It's been retired, but it's a very warm antique white. It's very pretty, but I think a lot of people saw yellow in it when they were using grays on all their walls. And against a light gray, it's gonna have a yellowish tinge. I don't want to put this little clock into a dark finish again. I want to bring it forward in time, because what it's going to be is either on a bookshelf or used in a similar way as just a fill piece for decor, as part of a mixture of items. When you're dealing with tight spaces like this, you saw that I took off a lot of that finish by accident, because without even realizing it, I was pulling my hand rather than doing straight on stipples. But you can see there's not very much on this sponge from what I did. Try to get the awkward places done first, because you need places that you can grip. And I'm pushing the brush under that crack that's there, because those shadows will show that there's no paint there. But if I get the paint under there now, it will hide that. And I put the paint on a little bit too thin here, so I'm adding more back onto it. I'm not going all the way around because I want to be able to have a handhold on this. I do want to make sure I stipple any areas where it got to other sides. Because those will leave lap marks. Manor House should cover in 2 coats over this, except for possibly that pedestal area that is hard to get the paint stippled without pulling it back off, because it's so awkward in there. In fact, on the next coat, I'm probably going to grab the 1/4 piece of true applicator that I keep for smaller work. When I get all this painted and it's dried, I will paint the bottom. And I've got foil down simply because I know I'm probably getting paint under the underneath right now, and I really don't want it all over my table. And you can see I've got paint there. It's not going to hurt the bottom because it's always going to be sitting on its bottom. These are soft, happy pounces. Even though you can hear the tapping, I'm sure I'm not smacking the fire out of it. And the true applicator does a good job on curves like this, getting into them. And this is ready to let its first coat dry. And I'm definitely going to use a smaller piece on this pedestal section of this when I put the second coat on. I decided this was actually, with the shapes and all that are on here, a good one to actually show you some of the extra things you can do with the roller that you might not know about in applying this paint. So I'm going to put the second coat of Manor House on here. And hopefully, if I get a good enough heavy coat on this, it might just make it through with just the 2 coats here. You'll see in a second why I'm going up on the bottom of this and the top, because I was thinking about it after I put the first coat on here of what's going to make this easier for me to roll it, stipple it, get without taking paint off of this. So that's why I put some up underneath here on both sides. And now I'm going to show you how the roller works. Now, here's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize you can do with the roller. Just like you can pounce with the True Applicator, you can pounce into here as well to get into those grooves. The couple of lighter spots on the base that you see are where, when it started to dry, I saw that a couple of runs formed. And so I just blotted those off because I did not want them on there. Crack may form again as it dries, and I really don't mind because it will just add to the faux age of this piece. But you can see where a couple of places I just pounced in with the roller. I'm double checking that there's not spots that it looks like a run is going to form, because these shapes like this, it's where they're most apt to do that. And just like I did on the first coat, I left myself places that I could hold on to this easily to paint and move it so that I could see what I was doing stippling. And the edge of that roller also works really well to get in to places where you might have runs form, or that it's harder to get the stippling and rolling done, those edges. Just make sure when you're washing it that you are very much paying attention to the ends, because these edges can crust up and then really mess you up when you're trying to paint other places and you're trying to roll. Whenever you can, go across your brush strokes first. That's the fastest way to blend them and have to do the least amount of rolling. And I am barely touching this. thing the foil can be helpful with is letting you spin these to see what you have. And parts of this are going to need a third coat, but not necessarily the whole thing. I wanted those edges, just one coat on them, so that when I close the back of the clock, I don't have glaring brown edges showing. And the back of the clock is only going to get 2 coats. I'm not rolling the edges because it was so dry, it just went into it anyway, so. All right, so this is ready to dry. It's pretty much, there's a few spaces on the base, this pedestal here, and the very front of the face that need a third coat. I may do a third coat over the whole thing, but the whole thing is not going to need a third coat. Let this dry, come back and work some more on it. Third and final coat of Manor House on this. There were a couple of places on this that were not as coated as it could be, so my choice is it's just as simple and something this small, just throw another coat of paint on it. And when you're dealing with shapes and stuff, that is one of the places that it's the hardest to get 2 coats of a color in. Again, I'm going to start on that pedestal piece first. Like I did before, come up underneath that, simply because the sponge is going to catch it. Well, the sponge of the roller. And I'm going to get the whole top of this. For the same reason, I can go ahead and let the sponge do both pieces at the same time. Catching the overage that's on that. Not looking for runs. barely overlapped where that wet met. Now I said 2 coats on this. Paint's already out. Takes just a minute. Worth it to make a better looking piece. Now, I will let that dry, except I see a drip over here. So that's got to be taken care of, and I've got to figure out where it's coming from. No idea. The fact that had a glob of wet paint on it allowed me to roll there. The same there, because I added a little bit more. I would not do that on the front of a cabinet door at all. But something this small, it's not going to be noticeable. And I don't see any place where this is trying to run. So it should be fine to finish drying. And then I'm going to add just a tiny bit of highlighting on it before the face of it is put back in and it's ready to be used. The clock face is what helped to determine my choices on this, which you should be able to see in the close-ups here. This creamy white was a nice accent to the golden tones that are in this. There's a black rim on this that I'm choosing not to paint. I think it's going to pop a little bit out of here and help bring this out. There's a slight bit of gray in this, but not a lot. I could choose to accent this with black antiquing gel, but it's too harsh for the look of this. When you're actually wanting some black antiquing on a white or cream or soft color, weathered wood is a better choice. It gives a more subtle look, it's not harsh, and that's what you want. Less is more should always be your mantra in antiquing, because when you use less, it looks more naturally aged. When you use too much, it just starts to look dingy or dirty or just overdone. Personal choice. If you like a really heavy antiquing, go for it. But I choose to do a more subtle look with it. From mixing my weathered wood, I had some onto the cover that I use for it, the saran wrap. And I'm really going to try to get most of the weathered wood off of my brush. I want very, very little on it. And again, I've got to think about where I can hold on this. So I'm going to work my way from the base up. And I'm actually going to start on the pedestal. I don't want very much on here at all. And in the close-ups, hopefully you can see that I'm not putting much, and I'm even using my fingers to help blend it out and soften it. But it's going to give it a much softer look. I'm aiming mainly for the edges of this. And watch your brush, because I almost swiped up here where I didn't want to be. But you can see I have not gone back to get any antiquing gel because I don't need it. I'm just working to highlight some of this, highlight the edges, and then go back, wipe it, rub it, right here at the front. I'd like to have a little bit more on that particular edge. And you can see there's just, it's subtle, but it's pulling out enough shadows here to show off the details of this. Still got some on here. So I'm just doing these edges. Again, all I want to do is create some highs and lows on this. Nothing overwhelming. Subtle, subtle, subtle. That's very hard to see maybe on the camera, I hope not, but that is what works the best when you're working over a light color, is don't overwhelm it. That went darker, so I'm using my finger to blend it. I used the side of the brush to hit that line where the seam was, instead of the brush tips. And now instead of dipping into this, I'm finding a wet spot that's still on the plate, getting most all of it back off. Use the side of the brush again to hit that edge. You can see that line is very light, but this part of the brush right here at the top edge of this paint is what I used to get that. And I will do that again. This one. You can see how little it puts on there. I'm going to do the similar thing to the face of this. I want to catch those lines, to mark them, and I'm using the side of the brush to do that. And then softening it out with my fingers. You start to see all this detail come out without having heavy lines. This was drying on my plate, so I needed to go back in and get just a little bit off of this. And I'm going to pull the lines around this face again. Using the side of the brush. This almost looks like black was applied, but if I had used black, I would have gotten very harsh lines. Add a little bit onto here. This time I am using the bristles, part of the bristles, but more laying it so I'm pulling it. This brush is so dry with paint that I am applying pressure at this point to get it to add what I want. And that is a trial and error, just experimenting to see. I could feel it, I could see here how much was going on, so I knew that I had enough on here. Now, I don't want to leave this completely white with nothing on it, but I also don't want to overdo it. So I'm going to start with just warming these edges where wear would take place. I'm using mostly the side of my brush against especially this edge, but I'm letting the bristles rub across it. I can handle down here on the base right now because this dries as thinly as I'm putting it on. It dries fast. And I'm using the less than perfect finish that was underneath to my advantage. I'm letting that pick up just the slightest highlights from this. Now I'm going to work a little bit more along this edge, but not getting back up onto the front. I don't want a stripy effect, so I'm not doing a straight band. My brush is going at a diagonal. Soften that so it's not harsh. Some up under here, because that would get handled a lot. And watch for like what just happened to me. That I got some down onto that base again, which I did not want. Just in case it's at an angle on a shelf, I'm going to add some onto the back here. I'll add some. onto the door, especially where it would have gotten scraped by the latch. We'll put in there. Put the face back into this and come back and show you what it looks like all put together. The little clock is finished and back together. I wanted to give you some really close-ups to be able to see the detailing, that it's subtle, it's there, it's just highlighting this without overtaking the design and leaving this simple. I know clocks are not a common thing that we have hanging around anymore because we have our phones, we have digital stuff everywhere. But small pieces like this can be nice fill pieces on a bookcase, sitting on an entry table with other pieces with it, just as a decor item. And you can see on this, as you go around it, you can see the markings here, here. It's not all over this. It's just where it would have been handled, where heavier rubs would have happened while it was being dusted over time. And you wouldn't really recognize that as gray looking at it. You'd probably think that black was what was used on there. But now, from where this little piece was of dark and dreary and not too attractive, it's now a cute piece to use. And I hope that it's given you some help, and if it has, please like and subscribe. And let us know what it is that you like, what's helping you in the comments, or if there's something specific you'd like to see, let us know. Thank you for watching.
Come here, you stupid ball. Whoa, so close. Help me.
So, yeah, I'm half Brittany Spaniel and half Border Collie, and afraid of water. What are you afraid of? Buttons? Really? You're kidding. Come on, you can do it.